Welcome back. Today we continue off where we left off last time. If you haven't watched the previous part, I highly suggest you do so it doesn't come to a surprise where we are. Without further disruptions, let's continue. As Britain entered the post-war period, the railways were undergoing a major transformation. The age of steam was gradually fading, replaced by diesel and electric traction. And just as trains were changing, so too was the way they were signaled. Mechanical systems had served their purpose well, but they were labor-intensive and couldn't easily cope with the rising complexity of the network. The answer? Electricity. The 1950s saw the growing adoption of electrically operated signals and relay-based interlockings. These systems allowed for far greater control with fewer people, and for the first time, signals could be managed remotely. This was the beginning of a shift from dozens of local signal boxes to centralized control points. One of the major innovations of this period was the color light signal. Unlike semaphore signals that relied on moving mechanical arms, color light signals used electric lamps to display red, yellow, or green aspects. These were easier to see at greater distances and could be automatically controlled based on track occupancy. The first full-scale application of these systems came in 1952 with the Watford area resignaling. It replaced semaphore signals and mechanical interlockings with modern technology, and it was a sign of things to come. Soon, areas like Crewe, London, and the newly electrified West Coast Main Line were following suit. By the 1960s, color light signals had become the new standard on busy main lines. The western region of British Rail, for instance, adopted a unique searchlight signal design, while the eastern and southern regions began converting their commuter lines. But this period wasn't just about signals, it was also about logic. Relay-based interlockings became more sophisticated, using logic circuits to control junctions, track occupancy, and routes. These systems could process conditions faster than any human could. And this new technology also made possible the next big leap, the panel signal box. Instead of levers, these centers used illuminated track diagrams and switches to control large areas of the railway. Signalmen, now often called signalers, could monitor multiple sections and set routes with a button press. One of the earliest and most iconic was the London Victoria panel box, opened in 1961. It replaced several mechanical boxes and controlled vast stretches of the southern region. Over time, these panel boxes would become more common across the UK. The rise of panel boxes also meant the fall of many traditional mechanical boxes. From the 1960s through the 1980s, British Rail gradually decommissioned hundreds of semaphore signals and their associated signal boxes, especially in urban areas. Still, rural lines held onto their semaphores for longer. It wasn't unusual to see a clunky old arm signal next to a modern Class 47 diesel right into the 1980s. Safety remained a key concern during this time, and major incidents like the Hither Green crash, 1967, and Clapham Junction disaster, 1988, which we'll cover more in Part 5, highlighted the importance of reliable, fail-safe signalling systems. These events pushed British Rail to continue modernizing not just hardware, but procedures too. By the late 1970s, the idea of computer-assisted signaling was starting to become a reality. Solid-state interlocking, SSI, systems were being tested. These replaced bulky electromechanical relays with microprocessors. It marked the beginning of the digital age. So while semaphore signals were still hanging on in some places, the UK was moving quickly toward a sleeker, more automated railway, a shift that would define the next chapter in the signalling story. By the 1980s, the march toward digital signaling was well underway. The growing complexity of the network, the introduction of new rolling stock, and the need for even greater safety made traditional relay systems look increasingly outdated. The biggest game changer was solid-state interlocking, SSI, first used on a trial basis in 1985 at Leamington Spa. Developed jointly by British Rail, GEC General Signal, and Westinghouse, SSI used microprocessors to replace racks of electromechanical relays. It was compact, efficient, and capable of controlling large areas with far fewer parts. From that point on, most new or upgraded signaling systems use some form of SSI. Unlike old systems that needed miles of wiring and huge cabinets, SSI could be maintained more easily and allowed for remote diagnostics, saving time and money. Alongside SSI came the rise of Integrated Electronic Control Centers, IECCs. These control centers allowed signalers to manage vast areas using large, computerized displays and keyboard interfaces. The first operational IECC was commissioned at London Liverpool Street in 1989, controlling traffic in and out of East Anglia. The new IECCs allowed better data visualization, real-time decision-making, and integration with other systems, like automatic train routing. The system could even predict traffic conflicts and offer route suggestions, a huge leap from the mechanical levers of just a few decades earlier. During the same era, British Rail continued its re-signalling efforts, removing the last remaining semaphore signals from many key routes. Some rural lines still held on, but by the end of the 1990s, color light signals and computerized interlockings had become the norm across most of the national network. It's worth noting that this transition wasn't just about technology, it was also about efficiency. Many signal boxes were closed, and staff numbers were reduced as control areas grew. In 1948, there were over 10,000 signal boxes across the UK. By the year 2000, fewer than 1,000 remained. That said, not everything was smooth. The privatization of British Rail in the 1990s brought its own challenges. Infrastructure responsibilities passed to Railtrack, and later to Network Rail, creating uncertainty around funding and long-term planning. Signaling upgrades continued, but not always consistently across regions. Still, the groundwork was laid for the next generation of railway control, one driven not just by relays and lights, but by digital software, satellite tracking, and real-time data. The final stretch of the story, which we'll explore next, takes us into the 21st century and the development of fully digital, automated signaling. Stick around, and don't forget to drop a comment if you've ever worked in a signal box, or even just passed by one and wondered what all those levers did. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the evolution of British railway signaling, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps support the channel and lets me keep making content like this. Thanks for riding along, and until next time, happy driving, and I'll see you down the line.